Hello, welcome to the Hitch API chat. We're Luke and Bruno, the founders of Hitch. We thought we'd like to chat more about what's happening in the API world. Each probably week or so, we'll see how it goes. But we basically want to share what we're seeing in the API world for everyone out there. Just for those who don't know us, Hitch is a product to help people both discover APIs but also support their API communities. But don't worry, this isn't just about us. This is us talking about what's happening in the API world. Many have said 2017 is going to be the year where the API economy explodes. We obviously thoroughly agree with that. But there's many movements taking place. We're going to talk through a few of those movements. Last year, the massive movement was in acquisitions of the API management companies. So one of the companies I used to work for, 3Scale, was acquired by Red Hat. There was also a massive deal where APIchat, which was listed, was acquired by Google Cloud. Also, there was the Axway Akana deal as well, and previously Mastery and Layer 7 had been acquired. So Bruno, do you have any thoughts around this? Why is this taking place? Why have all the API management companies being grabbed?
Yeah, I think the big players, like Google, IBM, Microsoft, they see a big opportunity in the API world. Because basically APIs, open their products to the external world, through integrations, easy to integrate with different products, and basically they want to own that space as well.
Okay.
So I see, some of these acquisitions took place in more companies that more on a leadership role.
Yeah.
Some of the other acquisitions are more about visionary companies. So basically they want to enhance their portfolio of product offering and through the APIs.
Yeah.
They see this as a good way to reach bigger markets.
Yep.
And to offer better products.
Okay. And the acquisitions have moved beyond just the API management piece as well. So we saw a few weeks ago, it was APIchat was acquired by Oracle. Oracle was obviously a slightly slower mover into the cloud world. APIchat was obviously focused, I think it was on the life cycle of development internal of companies. They were also the people that started Blueprint as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's one of the big competitors with the Swagger standard. What do you think this is all about for Oracle? Is it them just doing that same movement, although the company isn't pure API management play?
Yeah, I think in this particular case, I think it's interesting because I believe API has been dominant for a few years on the API design part of the life cycle, and this was something that Oracle was lacking.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that the other players already have that. So it's a hint for possible future acquisitions. But yeah, API basically they were able to own and manage part of the life cycle, which I believe is quite important, which is the design part of the life cycle.
Yeah.
And Oracle, possibly they thought that by enhancing their own product with the design part, they would be able to reach further larger audience again.
Yeah. Okay. And there's a lot more tools that are appearing in this space. Obviously, API management was sort of the primary category previously. Now, obviously, we're a player in the API tooling space, but I think this year we're going to see a lot more of these type of tools appear in the market. Yeah.
I think originally most companies were more worried about how can they launch their APIs, how can they keep their APIs up and running all the time and make sure the APIs behave in a good way in terms of scalability and all that. And I think what we're seeing now is that those problems are mostly solved by now. There's a lot of technology, open source or commercial. And what we're seeing right now is that people are getting worried about other aspects of the whole API life cycle, like the design part, support, all the other aspects that have been neglected for a few years. People are thinking of those more now.
Yeah, absolutely. Many people are seeing that problem, and I guess one of the indicators is the investor community are moving a lot into this space as well. We've been obviously seeing a lot of investments in companies that are either API first businesses, like Molten, which is like a Shopify but purely API driven. There's companies like Contentful who are also in that space, and obviously, from conversations we've seen, There's many companies that are purely investing a big part of their portfolio, the available investment to companies that are purely API or API tooling, right? Yeah, I guess in Europe we're seeing a few transactions, and we know that the Point 9 Capital guys have been quite open about this thesis that they have as well.
Yeah, it's like on one side you start to have more and more companies or startups that are API first companies. So the product is mainly the API.
Yeah.
And then on the other side you also have companies that try to help these companies, these first type of companies. So that deal with design, scalability management and all that. So we're seeing, probably because there's more products that are API first, you see more demand on the type of API tooling that we were talking about before.
Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to quote a great article from Forbes by Louis Columbus. We'll share it in the comments afterwards so you can see the article. But it was about 2017 is becoming the year of the API economy. And one of his key points was best APIs are starting to reflect requirements to the persona and customer journey level. So you've obviously done a lot of discussion and thought around this previously with API UX. Can you just give a quick intro for those who haven't heard of what is the concept of API UX and what does that actually mean and what are they talking about in this article?
Yeah, that article is quite interesting, and it also reflects what I was just mentioning before. So, the people and companies that are involved with APIs, they start to think, beyond the pure technology.
Yeah.
So they start to think about what is going to be done with the API, how is the API going to be used, and they start to think about personas, the user experience around the products that are built with their own APIs to make sure that the API is designed in a way that will help those products.
Yeah.
So it's not just about putting like mapping a one-to-one map of some database into an API, but it's more thinking the other way around, thinking about what products are being built with my API or can be built with my API, so I will design the API to reflect those needs.
Yeah. So basically the concept of UX that people have is normally around design, a user interface. We're now seeing that those concepts move into the API space.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Right. Great. So we're actually seeing a lot of that with the clients we're working with as well. Some of the more leading clients are starting to transition the way they communicate around their APIs. Some other things we've seen, we just wanted to mention some interesting APIs. We want to mention interesting APIs every time we do this. So Bruno, what's caught your attention in the last weeks?
So I think Intercom is a product we ourselves use it, and I think Intercom API is evolving. Naturally, they have a lot of different features inside the product, and I think the API itself is evolving, and it's interesting to see how they are kind of positioning themselves through the API as a potential platform for all things related to chat and support.
Yeah.
So this is quite interesting.
Okay. And associated with chat and support, it's more chat and some of the chat bots out there. We've seen the Oxford Dictionaries API come out. So obviously, Oxford Dictionaries, they have quite a sophisticated data service. They work with Amazon, with Google, with these major leaders. And they're working with, they've launched their API to take advantage of the long tail and helping app developers across the world. Have you seen some possible use cases around that? Or obviously chatbots is an element of that.
Yeah, one interesting possible use case is exactly with chatbots. So chatbots are about language conversation. So Oxford Dictionaries is a dictionary. So they have a lot of data. So they have a rich data set around language, grammar, and all that. That could potentially be used by chatbots to enhance their capabilities.
Okay, very good. So another API we saw, or API-led business this week, was TrueLayer, announced some financing as well. I think they're really interesting because they're working with a range of banks, I think primarily in the UK right now and more broadly in Europe. And they're allowing account information and transactional information to be accessible via an API in a fairly straightforward way. I think it's really interesting because there is a massive hurdle that banks go through to actually understand how to get data out there, but also how to share that in an effective manner. So we're really looking forward to seeing what happens with TrueLayer. What else do we want to cover? Upcoming, well, there's a few things upcoming. If you're in Barcelona during World Congress and want to talk APIs, our engineering team is here, so come and drop by, drop us a line. You can always email us at hi@hitchhq.com. We'll put the email in the comments as well if you want to come and have a chat. Other events coming up are API Days Sydney. So there's going to be Mark Boyd and Mehdi supporting the Deloitte team who are going to be running that event. There's going to be over 500 people in my hometown of Sydney. I wish we could have been there for that event, but that's a great place if you're in the region to go and talk APIs. It's going to be quite a significant event. There's also the Axway Imagine conference. They're going to be traveling all around the world during May. That's going to be a great event to talk APIs as well. But one other thing we wanted to talk about was Open API. Right. So there's some interesting things happening with Open API. V3 is coming out. There's some interesting improvements. What are one of the two key things that you're seeing with that V3 coming out?
No, I think there's been a great effort in improving what was already, in my opinion, quite good. And I think one of the lacking features of OpenAPI version 2 or Swagger was the ability to describe callbacks or webhooks. And the way we're seeing, all the evolution of all the APIs, more and more APIs use callbacks and webhooks.
Okay.
So because more and more solutions are becoming asynchronous,
yeah.
So you need an easy way to describe not just the inbound calls into your systems, but also the webhooks that your system provides. So OpenAPI 3 offers that out of the box. I think I'm not minimizing all the efforts around version 3, but I think this might be the major new feature for OpenAPI 3.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll be speaking to the guys very shortly. We'll hopefully speak to you guys regularly through these sessions. We'll also be interviewing people from the industry, API leaders, API thought leaders on standards as well. But thanks for joining us. We are Luke and Bruno from Hitch. If you ever want to talk about how to better support your API community, that's what we provide, a simple tool set to help you massively reduce your effort in supporting your community. We're always available to chat. Otherwise, we hope to see you soon. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks.